Hi, everybody, and welcome back, I hope, for many of you, to ICF LinkedIn Live. I'm excited about every single guest that joins us for those meetings, but today I'm especially excited to welcome Asheesh Advani, who is the president and CEO of Junior Achievement Worldwide. And you can learn a lot about Ashish, of course, from his bio. But I think this is so exciting to join with somebody who not only is leading this organization, very important organization for the last almost 10 years, but also was the benefiting from the organization itself. Entrepreneur in his own right, very, very well educated individual as well, with the Wharton School and Oxford University, and so well recognized speaker, writers, facilitator for World Economic Forum, author of two just about books, and just a fantastic addition to our collection of very, very accomplished guests. So Ashish, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And after that introduction, I'll only let you all down with all my comments. It's just too generous. Thank you.
I know you. I know you long enough to know it's true. So Junior Achievement organization in existence for over 100 years, right?
105 years, yes.
105. Wow. I'm just thinking about ICF being in existence for 30 years next year, and I'm feeling like a little baby here. But maybe that's an appropriate connection, because Junior Achievement is helping young people find their own way for entrepreneurship, for self-growth, growth in particular, preparedness for professional life, and also, I think, very important financial literacy. So I know that you were a part of that program when you were a teenager. Is that right?
Yes. So when I was young, I went through JA. And in my case, I'd moved from India, where I was born, to Canada. And I grew up in Toronto, Canada. And JA helped me build self-confidence. Because after I moved, I actually had a speech impediment. I stuttered a lot. And that stutter sort of held me back, I would say, in building confidence, as you can imagine, as a young kid. So, any activity, whether it's Junior Achievement or any student club where you get to be president or you get to have a leadership role, builds confidence. And the particular program that I did at JA allows you to build a real business while you're in school. So that gives you this entrepreneurial muscle. And you start to think of yourself as a CEO of a student business, which you can imagine is incredibly energizing. It makes you really rethink your own version of yourself. And my parents are not entrepreneurs at all. So really, for me, it was transformational. And I get to now lead the organization, and I see this transformation, not just with that program I did, but with many other programs as well around the world.
You created two companies, right? That you sold to some big names, mind you.
Yeah, so I was of course lucky. I sort of came of age during the .com boom and the internet revolution. So the first company, I was the founder, and the second company, I was hired to be the CEO by the venture capitalists. And even those two different experiences were very different. When you're the founder, people kind of assume that you're right about everything, and all of your decisions are the ones that they want to follow. Particularly, our company got bought by Virgin, Richard Branson's Virgin Group. So when you have an early success, people just assume that your whole leadership style becomes people are waiting for you to speak, which is, by the way, really unhealthy for any organization if everyone's waiting for the leader or the CEO to speak. The second business, I was hired, and I clearly did not have a lot of experience in the industry. So I had to surround myself with experts. And so my job as a leader was to make sure everybody was heard and to get the best idea out so we could pursue it. Junior Achievement's leadership role is a very different experience. It's a huge organization, a bit like your network as well, huge global organization. So it's not about having the best idea, not about everyone waiting for you to make a decision. And it's not also about making sure everyone's heard. It's really about making sure that each leader who's passionate about doing a project, you're removing obstacles in their way. Because in large organizations, like there's so many obstacles. Inevitably, it's just, people want to check in with each other all the time. And I kind of want to make sure we create lanes for the people who have really great, innovative ideas, who are, in many ways, entrepreneurs, right? To be able to build a great organization and a great network.
This is interesting to think about it that way, because the Junior Achievement as an organization is in existence, as you said, 105 years, and the need for it, I would say, has never been greater. So it gets one to wonder. So what is it? And it is a very international, global organization. So what is it about educational systems that are perhaps lacking parts of that, building confidence, building knowledge in some areas for young people? And over 100 years, I'm sure that the organization has some research on what is it and why is it. It's not in competition with education system, of course. It's very complementary. But we both know General Colditz, who started this whole revolution at the college level, if you will, for teaching leadership development. But are there any insights from the history of JA that you could share with us around that subject?
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying that teachers and school administrators have a very difficult job. They have many different stakeholders that they're trying to satisfy, including elected officials who represent people and parents. They also have the need to make sure they're conveying a curriculum, and that takes time, and students learn at different paces in different ways. So it is just the entire institution of a school is a challenging environment to please everyone. It's almost impossible to please everyone. So therefore, this being a teacher right now is a very difficult thing. And by the way, that's always been the case, harder now, I would say, than before, but always been hard. So we start with the respect for teachers. Having said that, we both know, I know you believe this strongly, that it's not just about skill set, it's also about mindset. Absolutely. And we've got to make sure that young people, I would say every young person, leaves a school environment feeling good about themselves and feeling like they have the confidence and the skills, but definitely the confidence to pursue their dreams. The reason I say confidence, not just the skills, is because we know that the skills needed for the jobs of the future are constantly changing. So the curiosity to want to learn and the mindset that you're somebody who will succeed and can succeed based on your own efforts is frankly more important than the skills, which might be outdated within 5 years. If you believe some of the research, and I know this is controversial sometimes because research comes from typically the Western world, and we're a global organization, and there's some parts of the world which don't have as much funding for research. But I would say that there's a growing consensus that the average young person who's graduating from school is going to have at least 20 jobs and at least 7 different careers during their working life.
Right.
That is a lot of change. That is a lot of change. It means you're probably going to be fired 5 times over the course of your life. Like, let's be frank, you're going to have 20 jobs. Not all of them are going to be voluntary transitions. You're going to have all the emotional turmoil that comes from, frankly, not being wanted by the person or the organization you've given a good part of your life to, which is traumatic for many people. So we have to learn to build that resilience, that mindset that allows you to have the confidence to go from job to job and career to career and still be grateful and still be happy and still be kind of willing to be an economic agent of society and helping build strong communities.
Right, because what is it, 2025, when millennials will represent the greatest percentage of workforce around the globe. And of course, we know that in certain parts of the world, it's already happening with the little younger demographics. So again, the need for this kind of support is definitely pronounced and significant. So JA, you guys have, of course, a phenomenal staff, but also working with tons and tons of volunteers, much like ICF. So who are they? Who are they? Who is
Yeah.
giving into the organization?
Well, we do. We're really powered by volunteers. And these are volunteers who typically work in the business world in some way. Some work for large corporations, some work for small companies, and they're willing to give of their time and go into the classroom to meet students. And for example, for a career day, that's one example of how it works. But there's so many other ways that volunteers get involved. We also bring students to workplaces. So that's another way people volunteer is they don't go to the school. We bring the students to the workplace. And for many students, it's their first time ever seeing what a workplace is like. So that becomes their mental model for what they think about what business is or what companies do. I'll tell you one quick story. I was in India. I was born in India. So, when I go to visit Jay India, it's obviously very personally meaningful. I saw a group of young girls, 14-year-old girls, if you can imagine them with their school uniforms and pigtails. We went to GE Healthcare for the day. Okay, we took them out of school. They'd walk by this office building, almost every day on the way to school. First reaction they had was, "Oh my God, this is air conditioned." I mean, these girls they just didn't even think of that being the first reaction they would have. And then they met executives from GE Healthcare back to back. We had a whole bunch of speakers, and a lot of them were male executives, the CEO, the head of sales, and the girls listened politely. It was fine. Then they got to this female executive who said, "I went to the same school as you. And now my job is to run nutrition for all the GE hospitals in Mumbai." And she says, "I help sick people get healthy food." And every girl in the room wanted to be her. Like every girl was like, "Oh my goodness, I want to be like this person." And the person said, "I studied chemistry and that's what led me to this career." So we asked the girls afterwards, they all wanted to study chemistry. Like chemistry had meaning to them in a way that it didn't prior to that day. So I share that example because I think, one, it's personally meaningful to me being from India, but also role models for people are so important. And these volunteers, effectively, many of them become role models for kids. So it's a very fulfilling thing to volunteer for JA. Almost every volunteer who does it comes and tells me, "I think I got as much out of it as the young people." So it's kind of a nice give back.
It is, and it also takes us back to a bit of a coaching story about storytelling, right? You can read theory, you can do it all, and then you see it being a reality for somebody, and suddenly it has a resonance that perhaps it didn't have before. That's awesome. That's fantastic. And there is another aspect that I wanted to talk to you, because the organization works with young people. Anywhere you turn, you read about the mental health crisis with young people, them being exposed to maybe stressors that the generation before was not, and maybe a generation of their parents and teachers also do not know exactly how to deal with it and how to best support the younger people. Is there any facet of the activities of JA that focus on that?
Yeah, so mental health is becoming a significant issue for an entire generation. So this is not just impacting small groups of people, this is impacting everyone. And I'll say every organization, not just junior achievement, has to lean in on the science-based side of mental health. Because I think what's honestly happened is everyone's had to become a bit of an expert on mental health because we're all encountering people who are suffering. The challenge is there's lots of opinions about how to deal with different kind of issues, but we have to rely on the science. So to answer the question even generally about mental health writ large is hard for me because it depends on actually what the issue the young person's having. But I'll tell you one thing just to make sure I'm responsive to your question. I'd say social media has become widely known to be a significant cause, or one of the significant causes, of many of the mental health issues that young people are having.
Sure.
So we are really intentional at Junior Achievement about making sure that our programs are delivered not just through technology, but mainly in person. It's rare amongst organizations that have scale. A lot of organizations that have scale rely almost exclusively on technology. So it's all about being on your device. It's all about being in front of a screen. And for JA, so many of our programs, the vast majority of our programs, are delivered in person. And it really makes learning sort of real when, for example, I'll give you one example. So we have a program where young people, this is in the US, young people leave school for a day and they go to like this wonderful environment where they simulate having different roles. They could be the mayor, they could be the bank teller, they could be a person who runs a healthcare company, and they can also be consumers. And the consumers then have to go and interact with their classmates in this simulated sort of, game of life for a day. And there's a curriculum at school before and a curriculum at school after to reflect on what they've learned and to prepare for what they're going to learn. And the young people come out of it, and first of all, they have such respect for their parents. They have such all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is what my parents do. They've got to buy insurance in case I break my leg and I have to go to the hospital. Like there's little insights and nuances that young people learn. And this is mainly about teaching financial literacy and financial health to young people. But there are many other programs we have that I think are not reliant on technology as a delivery channel, specifically because we want to make sure we are keeping kids off screens.
This is very, very significant insight, because within your tenure with JA, I'm sure that you've seen several shifts, and perhaps the shift before was move everything to technology and screen, and now with recognition of what the consequences was perhaps not predicted before, that they could do harm rather than help. Anything else significant that you noticed during your tenure that you do differently as JA?
Well, I mean, there's of course a lot that happens over 10 years. I'll highlight a few things that I'm particularly proud of and I've seen go well. So we're a very global organization, and like your network, when you travel around, calling yourself global and being global are sometimes different things, right? When you actually go and visit a young person in Estonia, Poland, like I'd say all of Eastern Europe, there's this energy and dynamism. Like they actually believe the future can be theirs. So I've seen that in so many parts of the world. And it's so energizing when you go and you meet young people who really are optimistic about the future. And we've really worked hard to build sustainable operations as part of our growth around the world. And over the last 10 years, our growth in, I'll call it emerging markets or the newer regions of our organization has been quite substantial. So something I'm particularly proud of is we've taken a very strong American organization and we continue to grow it around the world in a way that actually has helped the American organization too. So sometimes people look at the world as a zero-sum game where if somebody else wins, they lose. And I will tell you definitively, if you look at all the data in our organization, all the boats have risen as the tides have risen. So, and that's been really energizing for me to watch because it's also brought, I think, our world together a little bit, at least our little JA world. Like there's a genuine respect for people across countries. And, I think you saw that we've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, which is just an amazing thing for our organization. I mention it now because it's a source of pride for our organization that we've been able to bring attention and energy to this connection between economically empowering young people, which then leads to prosperity, which then leads to peace. Because you can't have peace without prosperity. You can't have prosperity without economic agency for young people in all parts of the world, including in parts of the world where sometimes we forget about in the Western world. And that to me is amazingly energizing and something which brings me a lot of personal satisfaction.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And since we're talking about accolades, also, 6 times in a row, JA being nominated as one of the top 10 influential NGOs. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. And, it's my colleagues, and I really want to make sure I appropriately talk about the fact that we are, just like your organization, so global. It's all the national leaders, the regional leaders, and then all the staff and volunteers who allow us to earn these recognitions. I get to do these wonderful LinkedIn Lives and, talk about them, but it really is a massive team effort.
Yeah, it is. Takes more than a village, right? It takes more than a village. One other aspect that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit is that nowadays when those young people join workforce, you were already talking about not only competence but also confidence, very important, and the leadership preparedness of sorts. So that was one aspect. The other aspect is that oftentimes they may be joining a workplace where there are 5 different generations working side by side. And that's something that we observe in coaching a lot, that the leaders of those organizations are like, what do I do with boomers to Gen Zs, trying to make them work harmoniously and in fact being thriving teams, and being collaborators rather than maybe like, you don't know what you're doing, you're too young or you're too old, all this good stuff. We've been growing quite a bit in Middle East, and traditionally the age and the experience was so important. And I heard it from one of the ministers in Saudi Arabia, and I loved the attitude or the philosophy, because he said, you know what, if you're good enough, you're old enough. It doesn't matter your age. If you're good enough, you're old enough. So I'm just thinking, those youngsters will be joining workforce. We hear about all this in different parts of the world. Of course, it's different, but about retirements and all this stuff. So young people come to leadership positions younger and younger. And I think that programs like JA are preparing them for being economically viable individuals, but also this leadership development has a lot to do with their preparedness for workforce.
Yeah. So I know we're here to talk about my book, but let me talk about somebody else's book, which talks specifically about this. This gentleman by the name of Carl Moore, he's written a book called Generation Y, which is all about how you actually, and Y is spelled WHY. It's all about how in a workplace, how people have to work well together across these generations with lots of very concrete advice. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And I actually got a chance to interview Carl Moore for my book. So it's been, a full circle.
That's great. Speaking of your book, Modern Achievement, that's your second book, isn't it?
Well, actually, it's my first book that I will say is a international release book. I've written 3 other books, one when I was a kid in high school and 2 that came later. So I don't know how you count, 4, 3, 2, 1, something like that.
Well, it's exciting. I guess the launch is August 13th, right?
Yeah, August 13th it comes out. So it's been a labor of love until now. It's very exciting to be at the finish line and to see it now finally done. And now we're just waiting for the launch.
That's super exciting. And I also do know that all the net proceeds will go back to JA. So guys, you can pre-order the book, being co-authored with Marshall Goldsmith. And so what is different about Modern Achievement?
Okay, let me explain what the book's all about. So it's organized into 30 life lessons, and each lesson is short and digestible, really easy for people to consume. But the thesis of the book, it's called Modern Achievement because the concept of achievement has changed, and young people think of it very differently. When you know you're going to have 20 careers or 20 jobs and 7 careers, and you know that 40% of your skills will be outdated every 5 years. The idea of the classic achievement book is you set a long-term goal, you write it down, you visualize it, and the universe helps it happen. And that's just not the right model anymore. So this book that I've written with Marshall Goldsmith, who's our shared friend and shared mentor, I would say that is written to ensure that young people think of achievement differently, which is all about having multiple goals, being able to pivot and change, and really leaning into the process and enjoying the journey of success, not just goal attainment. So it redefines achievement to be not just about goal attainment, but also about the process and the journey. And then all the stories and all the lessons are designed to support that. And we have a framework for how to make sense of these lessons as well, which we've been using at JA. So it's been just a true labor of love with lots of stories. Marshall was kind enough. You mentioned all the proceeds are donated to Junior Achievement. I mean, that's just the ethical right thing to do for me as a CEO. But for him and for Aisha Bursell, who's the illustrator,
I didn't know Aisha did the illustration. Oh,
so
wow.
Aisha is like one of the world's best designers. And for her to provide her illustrations, and they're beautiful illustrations, which brings the book and the lessons to life, is just so generous. So it's meant to be the kind of, book that is not meant to be read cover to cover in one sitting, but one you pop in and out of based on where you are on your life journey. And I've also heard feedback. This is kind of funny. I've heard feedback while the book was written for a younger audience. The older folks who read the book, who've had established careers, look at it from the perspective of not just their kids, but also themselves. And that's been very fulfilling for me, because I didn't think I was writing for that audience, but that audience is getting, frankly, as much out of the book and the lessons than the others. So that's kind of energizing.
Yeah, I think I read the comment from Sally Helgerson, who said, like, they're good for people up to 90, right? The book, and those lessons are good for people up to 90. That's amazing. That's so exciting, and I think so important. Also important for coaches to understand the motivation and the environment and the circumstances that are creating a very different world for young people to enter in their professional space, if you will. So can't wait till August 13th to get the book and to learn all 31 life lessons. And Asheesh, so how is it writing a book with Marshall? We all know Marshall.
So Marshall Goldsmith, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's in his 70s, and he did this amazing thing. He did a project which he said he's going to teach everything he knows to, initially, I think it was 15 or 25 people. And then he got thousands of applications from around the world. And he decided to increase the number to 100. And now it's, of course, more than 100. And both you and I are privileged to be part of that group.
Yes.
And it's such an amazing project for somebody to do that's so generous. And he's asked us in return, in fact, the only thing he's asked us to do is to make sure we do the same thing for other people. So it's a beautiful, pay it forward way to think about life. And so what's it like to write a book with him? Well, I'll tell you, he's a busy guy.
Yes.
So what we found a way to collaborate on the book where we're not telling stories of us together. I mean, there's a few of those, but it's his stories and my stories. So we have different lives. I was born in India, and I come from a whole different background than him. He was born in Kentucky, and we just have very different lives. And I think it's important to be super authentic about the fact that we come from different backgrounds and we can share our own lived experience. And that's been one of the best things, is we actually have the same lesson that we learned using different lived experiences. Like one of the lessons, just to give you an example, is one of the lessons in the book is to make friends 5 to 10 years older than you. Nice, simple lesson, right? And a lot of young people don't think that. A lot of young people in high school and college, of course, have their friends who are their same age.
Yeah.
You're going to have 20 different jobs and 7 different careers. So much of it's going to come through networking and actually having a role model who's 5 to 10 years older, who's already been through it. So that's just an example. And of course, both Marshall and I have our own life lessons for each of these things and experiences. So that's been kind of fun to see the overlap. And it's been an amazing project to work with him. It's an honor of a lifetime for me, because he's such a, insightful, wise man. I call him a modern day sage. That's really good.
Does he like it?
I don't know. I've never asked him if he likes it, but maybe I should ask him. But
yeah, you're right that he's a very busy person. I typically bump into Marshall not in Nashville where he lives, but somewhere else in the world. That's for sure. Well, Asheesh, as always, this time is just flying when we're having those conversations. So I really want to thank you and JA for the work you're doing, because this is the future, right? This is the future, and it cannot be taken lightly. So really, congratulations on the success of the organization. Congratulations on your leadership. You're a father yourself. Anything that you take out of that to teach?
Well, I've got twin boys, and they don't listen to anything I say. So this book gives me a chance to write down life lessons that they will read when they're ready. For all the parents, I will say that for all the parents, who are listening in here, one of the best illustrations in the book is about purpose. A lot of us are like, we need our kids to have life purpose. My advice is hold off on that instinct, they will get purpose when they're ready. For the early phase of their career, their purpose is really given to them. They'll discover it on their own at the right time in the right way. So on that note, hopefully the parents who are listening will find some value in the book as well.
Well, awesome. Asheesh, thank you so very much. You are a busy person yourself, so thank you for finding time to meeting with our audience today. And I really super thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.